Hello, David. Here are your 220S carburetors, and we're looking at them in the mounted position. And I want to go over a few things with you in terms of tuning, some of the basics. Now then, your basic settings, the initial settings are real easy. You got your idle mixture screws down here, and what you're going to do is screw this in until it just snugs down. See that? I mean, I just finger pressure, finger tight. You don't need to cram this down in here really super hard. You're not setting anything by the harder you screw it in, the more it's set, or the more perfect the start is. It's not the point of it. You just want to touch it so that your needle, your tapered needle, is seated. And if you really crank down hard on it, you're going to put a dent in this needle, and you're going to distort the hole inside the base here. So now you back out 1.5 turns. So there's half a turn, 2, 3. That's your basic initial setting. Same thing over here. I guess saying basic and initial is redundant. So we got 1, 2, 3. Got 1.5 turns out. And you're going to disconnect your linkage, throttle linkage right here. And what you want to do is you want to screw this in until it just touches the throttle linkage, and then you're going to screw it in 1.5 turns. So what we're doing is watching to see when this thing contacts your lever. There you can see just now moving the lever. So we're going to go in 3 half turns. Here's 1, 2, 3. Let's do that again just to make sure. So make sure our lever is down. See if you can get some reference here. You can see it moving. Yeah, you can see it moving. Okay. I'm just going to start. There, we're just making our initial. There's contact. So we're going to go. There's a half a turn, another half a turn, third half a turn. And I'm having to do this on the sideways on the bench, so because our lever is making contact with the bench. So let's screw this in until we get some contact. Yep, already there. Okay, there's contact. Now I'll go 1, another half, another half. Okay, got our settings. That's it. Can't even be more complicated than if you wanted it to be. And what you're going to do now is to connect the linkage on the carburetors. Hit your choke and start the car. As soon as it gets warmed up, you're going to do your final tuning, because you can't do the final tuning until the car is warmed up. And what you're going to do is measure your airflow, which is synchronizing the carburetors so that they both are sucking the same amount of air. And to do that, disconnect your linkage so that they're running independently of each other, so that you can tune one carburetor than the other. And what I've made here is an adapter so that we can use the synchrometer. If you don't have one of these, get you one. Here's upside down. Synchrometer. Airflow. The one I use is the BK 1 through 35, and you can get these on Amazon, and very reasonably priced, less than $50, I think. And what these do is measure airflow. So I've made a little adapter out of cardboard, and this goes on here. The synchrometer is now going to be measuring your airflow, and what you're going to do is balance these carburetors to where they both draw the same amount of air, and you're doing that with your idle screw right here. So you're going to dial this in and out until the air to this needle right here is flowing the same amount of air as over here as the second carburetor. That's all there is to that. And that also is going to be adjusting your idle, so you have to decide where you want your idle to be. Generally 7, 8, 900 RPM. So two things: you're getting your idle set and you're getting the airflow, so they're both drawing the same amount of air. Once that's done, you're then going to come in here and you're going to adjust your idle mixture screw, and you're going to screw it in until the engine starts to stumble, and you're going to screw it back out a little bit more until the engine starts to stumble, and then you're going to find your midpoint. And that's going to depend on your engine as to where your the midpoint is for best running with the needle. And that's why all we can do is the initial setting of 1.5 turns out, and after that you dial it in and adjust it to your engine. And then you can go back and recheck your airflow, because it will change, and you can readjust your airflow. And then once you've got that all taken care of, you will hook up your throttle linkage such that as soon as you snap these balls on, the idle does not change. Because if your idle changes when you snap a ball on, then that means your linkage is not adjusted correctly. And then once you've snapped your linkage in place, I would go back and recheck your airflow, just to make double sure that you have not altered the airflow between the carburetors. Now then, once you're in operation, when you accelerate, you should be able to see a little jet of fuel shooting out here from your discharge needle. And it won't be terribly obvious when the engine is running, because that air sucking, drawing the fuel out, will kind of disperse the fuel very quickly. So what you may do is shut the engine off, and then you can goose the throttle, and you'll be able to see fuel coming out here. And when you also goose the throttle, you should be able to see fuel coming out down here, or at least vapors, because this is an air corrector jet right here, drawing in the proper amount of air, but then there's fuel coming out through these little ports down here. But these carburetors are very, very easy to adjust. There's nothing that you can do to them, even if you wanted to. I mean, there's nothing more complicated. And then remember, when you're setting your idle, I'm sorry, not when you're setting your idle, when you're setting your timing with a strobe light, be sure to disconnect the vacuum, probably at the distributor, but this is the vacuum port here, and you would disconnect the vacuum at the distributor, so that your vacuum advance is in op, so that you can get a true reading on your strobe light for your timing at the crankshaft. Good. I think you should take care of it. If you have any questions, or if anybody has any better ideas about than my little cardboard adapter, just make some comments and let me know. Thank you.